Want to try to get something else set up for you.
Okay, just let us know when you're ready, please.
Thank you.
Good evening, and welcome to the City of Riviera Beach Planning and Zoning Board meeting. It is May 9th, 2024, approximately 6:32 p.m. If anyone wants to speak on an agenda item, please complete a public comment card and give it to the planning and zoning staff prior to the board discussion and before the public comment section is announced. In no event Will anyone be allowed to submit a comment card to speak on an agenda item after the title of the item is read or considered? Have a moment of silence. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, Ms. Davidson.
Good evening, Mr. Chair. Ms. Abrella Weathers is going to be facilitating this evening with my assistance.
Good evening. Mr. James Gallen,
Here.
Mr. Anthony Brown,
Present.
Mr. Bruce Guyton,
Here.
Miss Margaret Shepherd,
Here.
Miss Renee Burgess,
Here.
Mr. William Wiley,
Present.
Mr. Frank Fernandez.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Any acknowledgement of board member absence notifications?
No.
Acknowledgement of board member vacant positions?
We have vacant District 2. We have vacant District 4, vacant District 5, and these are the alternate members.
Any additions or deletions to the agenda for tonight?
None, Mr. Chair.
Before we proceed, could I have a motion on the agenda to accept the agenda for tonight?
So move. Second.
We'll take a vote now. Mr. Guyton,
Yes.
Ms. Shepherd,
Yes.
Ms. Burgess,
Yes.
Mr. Wiley,
Yes.
Mr. Fernandez.
Yes.
The vote passes.
Ms. Weather, do we have any disclosure of board members on any discussions tonight?
None, sir.
I'm sorry. Maybe I should have advised you. I did speak to the applicant for the rezoning. I did receive a phone call. I'd like to put that on the record.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I also spoke to the applicant or the representative for applicants on item 7A.
Just for the record, are we discussing the 4142 Leo Lane?
Yes,
That's
that's
correct.
correct.
Yes, that's
That's
what I'm
correct.
Because we have two items. We want to make sure we're on the right one.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, the rezoning.
Yes, sir.
That's the Leo Lane.
Yes.
Right. And question, since I'm fairly new, is there or something we're supposed to fill out prior to the meeting, or do we just make an announcement? Maybe that's a question for the attorney.
For this particular issue, no, sir. If you had a conflict and you were going to be abstaining from the vote, then you would have to fill out paperwork.
Okay, so if an applicant calls us or call me about their item coming up, I can just announce it here during the disclosure portion.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
No problem, Mr. Guy. We now go to the approval of the meeting minutes for April the 11th, 2024. Do I have a motion to accept the Planning and Zoning Board meeting minutes, April 11th, 2024?
So move.
Second.
Mr. Guyton,
Yes.
Ms. Shepherd,
Yes.
Ms. Burgess,
Yes.
Mr. Wiley,
Yes.
Mr. Fernandez.
Yes.
The vote passes.
Thank you. Item number 6, unfinished business.
None.
Let's move to item 7, new business, 7A.
Sorry.
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Riviera Beach, Palm Beach County, Florida, amending City Code of Ordinance, Chapter 31, ZA 240001 on behalf of 4142 Leo Lane and Sinatra and Company Applicant approving a rezoning amendment application to rezone a plus minus 2.5148 acres parcel located at 4142 Leo Lane, PCN number 56 42 42 25 00 1170 from a low-density multifamily dwelling district RML-12 to a multifamily dwelling district RM-15, providing for equitability, conflict, severability, and codification, and providing for an effective date. And presenting will be Mr. Kurt Thompson, Principal Planner.
Okay, good evening, everyone. I'm Kurt Thompson, Principal Planner for the City of Riviera Beach, and I will present this case before you. As Ms. Weathers has read to you the nature of the application, this is a rezoning of what you have here is a picture of the subject property. To the east of the property is an area that appears to be an agricultural type of use. To the west is a nursery. To the south is a residential single-family zoning district. And then to the north is a church that you can see on the overhead, okay? Pardon me while I get a little better organized. The proposed use, the applicant is requesting approval of a rezoning to include a 2.5 plus or minus parcel located at 4142 Leo Lane. Property control numbers indicated from a low-density multifamily RML-12 to a multifamily dwelling district RM-15. The subject property is currently vacant. The future land use is medium density multiple family up to 15 units per acre. To the north is, as I said, is in terms of the zoning district, there's RML 12, low density multiple family district, which is where the church is. To the south is the RPUD RM 15, which is a townhouse of development. To the east is a low density multiple family, which is the location of what looks like a agricultural nursery business. And then to the west is zone RML 12, but the use there is a nursery. In terms of the staff analysis, I'm giving you a summary here. There's two main points: whether the proposed amendment is consistent with all elements of the city comprehensive plan, and secondly, whether and the extent to which the proposed amendment is inconsistent with existing and proposed land uses. I just want to go back just briefly. In terms of the consistency with existing land uses, the applicant is looking at changing the zoning to the RM15, which is residential. And even though we have a residential zoning district on the east and west of the subject property, you have non-residential uses, but it's a residential zoning district. So I just want to make that clear. The uses there are existing on each side, but it's a residential zoning district. Okay. The future land use element, objective 1.8 states that the city shall continue to ensure that its land development regulations are consistent with and further the provisions of the comprehensive plan. And according to policy 181 of the future land use element, the medium density multiple family up to 15 units per acre is a medium density category out of the comp plan that includes RML12 and RM15 and RMH15 zoning districts. In this case, the applicant is proposing a minimum density increase that is compatible with the city's comprehensive plan and will be more consistent with the property's land use designation. Because the applicant is not proposing a density more than what is compatible with the existing future land use element, staff has determined this proposed rezoning appears to be consistent with this future land use policy. The proposed zoning amendment from low-density and multifamily dwelling to multifamily dwelling district RM15 with a zoning designation being compatible with the future land use designation of medium density family residential up to 15 units per acre. So in other words, the RM15 is compatible with the land use, which is MF15, 15 dwelling units per acre, and they're asking for a density of 15 dwelling units per acre via the RM15 zoning district. The proposed rezoning shall be consistent with the existing medium density and multiple family up to 15 units per acre land use designation, as mentioned, above in the city's comprehensive plan. So I'm gonna go on, I'm gonna keep going forward. The proposed rezoning shall be consistent with the existing medium density, multiple family residential zoning district, which is up to 15 units per acre, land use classification, and the applicant is proposing to rezone from RML12 to RM15, which according to the comprehensive plan, that type of zoning and those three zoning districts are compatible and in sync with the land use designation of MF15. As you know, the MF15 or the land use classification is the geographical format of the comp plan. In other words, the comp plan in geographical form is here, in this case, the MF15, and they want to rezone from RML12 to RM15, which is in the same land use classification as the MF15 classification in the comprehensive plan. All clear? So with that, the property has been noticed according to state law and city regulations. I don't believe we got any comment at all from the general public regarding this.
No.
Thank you, ma'am. And so the staff recommends that the Planning and Zoning Board recommend approval of this petition to the City Council based upon the following two findings of fact: that the proposal is consistent with the future land use element of the comp plan. And secondly, the Planning and Zoning Board review and recommend to the City Council to approve the proposed rezoning request as submitted. The applicant's representative is here, Ms. Kaiser, and she will now make her presentation. I only request that the board hold off on their questions until Ms. Kaiser has had an opportunity. But this is really straightforward, ladies and gentlemen. It's a rezoning from RML12 to RM15, and the underlying, the land use designation or the comprehensive plan designation is RM15.
Good evening. My name is Andrea Kaiser with Kaiser Legal here on behalf of the applicant. Thank you for this opportunity to present before you, Chair, Vice Chair, board members, and staff. And I also would be remiss to not wish our mothers a happy Mother's Day this upcoming weekend. I just wanted to take a brief moment and thank staff for their presentation. And I just want to add just a few more details to that presentation. The first thing I'd like you to do is just very, very quickly, just meet the applicant, Sinatra & Company, because it's important for you to know who's investing in your community. They're a family-owned business. They're founded in 2009. They are headquartered in both Buffalo, New York, and Tampa. They're one of the largest private owner-operators of apartments and commercial properties in Western New York. But what I really love about this family-owned business is that they're prominent participants in nonprofit organizations. They really like to make a difference in the communities they serve, which includes working with local vendors in the communities that they work in. And I just wanted to give you a snapshot of some projects that they've done currently in Tampa, Florida. So Mr. Thompson gave you a brief overview of the development site. It is located on Leo Lane between Military Trail and I-95. It's approximately 2.5148 acres. It's vacant. And as Mr. Thompson mentioned, it's got a medium density future land use designation, but its zoning district is low density. Today, we present before you a rezoning application only, and I just wanted to make a clarification for the record because it might be a bit confusing. In your backup, there's a conceptual site plan, and the reason why you have a conceptual site plan is because staff wanted us to demonstrate that the number of units that we were requesting would fit on the property. But I just want to reiterate that it is a conceptual site plan. It's not the final site design, and a full site plan application package will be forthcoming. I just wanted you to know that because I don't want to make representations here today and you'd be very unhappy with me if those changed later. So the purpose of the plan that you see was just conceptual to demonstrate the density. And as you can see from that concept plan, 15 units per acre fits just fine on this property. So now let's talk about the current application before you, which is the rezoning application. We show you that the future land use does not change. The city's comprehensive plan envisions that this area be medium density, up to 15 units per acre. By proposing to rezone the property from 12 units, low density, to medium density at 15 acres, it actually makes it more consistent. And what's important, as Mr. Thompson pointed out, is your comprehensive plan has a definition. And it says that RM15 is appropriate for an MF15 land use. So it is 100% consistent here. And I'm sure you don't get that all the time where it's 100% consistent. The positive impacts of your approval and your recommendation of a rezoning today is one, that it's 100% consistent. It's expressly permitted. And actually the RM15 zoning district is more consistent because it brings it up to a medium density residential. It meets the current housing demands. You have the multifamily property located to the south. That's almost 15 units per acre. It shows at approximately 14.9 units per acre. And then the new project that was approved down the street, Celeste, that's 20 units per acre. So as you can see, we're right there. That is in harmony with the surrounding properties. A 15 unit per acre property is in harmony. It meets your current housing demands. It provides for a greater tax base. It revitalizes the surrounding communities, and your staff has recommended approval. In your backup, we included a narrative in this property. In that narrative, we provide in detail about how this application meets all the criteria for a rezoning application. I'm not going to go through that again. I just wanted to let you know it was there, and I'm here to answer questions in regard to the criteria. And that is the end of my presentation. I'm happy to take any further comments or questions. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Ms. Shepherd, any questions?
Can you come back to me?
Yes,
Mr.
ma'am.
Chair, thank you.
Mr. Guyton?
I have a question for staff.
Yes, sir.
Just clarification for me. The only issue that is before us today is the rezoning, whether to change the rezoning to allow 15 units per acre as opposed to 12 units per acre.
That is correct.
That's the only issue right now.
That's the only issue.
Okay. On the residential, you showed us adjacent properties. There was only one that was residential
That's correct.
to the south. And that one was
To the south.
to the south. Was the RM15?
No, sir. Thank you for asking that. That's a planned unit development. It's residential PUD or residential planned unit development.
Okay. Okay. And if you wanted to briefly explain the PUD, you could, but I'll move on.
Yeah, I know you understand that.
Yeah, well,
I'm sure everybody
No,
else, Ms. Shepherd shakes her head too, so
Yeah.
everybody else
So,
understands.
so the last point is the comprehensive plan does allow this without us having to modify anything, right? It's written in the comp plan that it's allowed.
Yes, sir. If, if I may approach, I have a document here to show you that I.
Oh, no, you can just tell me.
You believe me, I'm gonna
Yeah.
tell you. Right from the comprehensive plan, I'm gonna read to you, this is a section out of the comp plan. And it says that, for the land use, the land use being medium density, multiple family residential up to 15 units per acre, it says that this land use will be implemented by the RML 12, RM 15, and the RMH 15. So in other words, those three zoning districts are used to implement the land use designation of medium density, multiple family up to 15 units per acre.
Okay, I have no further questions.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Wiley?
I agree with Mr. Guyton. Just the same thing he was stating. There's just clarification from the 12 to 15, and that with the future comprehensive plan, that's what it fits into for what we're doing for our future. That's correct.
That's correct, Mr. Wiley.
All right, that's all I need to know.
Burgess?
No questions at this time.
Gallo?
No question.
Mr. Brown?
No questions, sir.
I have no questions either. Ms. Shepherd?
No questions.
I move for approval.
Second.
All right, Mr. Chair, we do have one comment card before we take the vote.
Sorry about that.
Sorry about that.
We have a public comment card from Mr. Tadrick McCoy on this item. Public comment cards are now closed.
Good evening.
Good evening, sir.
I just wanted to make the comment. How long is the public comments here? 7 minutes?
Either.
1 minute.
Well, I won't take but about 15 seconds. Great. This is very routine. I had the opportunity to meet Ms. Kaiser, and I thought certainly this was routine, and I think it was well explained by Mr. Thompson. So yeah, it's routine, and I certainly think it's great so that we can increase density. As you guys know, we're in a housing crisis. The calls don't stop. So where there's an opportunity for us to increase the density where it's not affecting overall other adjacent properties, I think it's certainly a great opportunity, and I would encourage you to support it as well. Thank you, members.
Thank you, sir. Any other comment? Any comment cards?
No, that's it. No, sir, that's it. Public comment cards are now closed.
I restate my motion for approval.
Second was for rezoning of ZA 240001 as read into the record by Ms. Weather, explained thoroughly by Mr. Thompson and Ms. Kaiser.
That's correct.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Ready for the vote. Mr. Guyton,
Yes.
Ms. Shepherd,
Yes.
Ms. Burgess,
Yes.
Mr. Wiley,
Yes.
Mr. Fernandez,
Yes.
unanimous vote.
Thank you very much and have a great evening.
Thank you. And thanks for bringing housing and business into our community. Mr. Thompson, we're now on 7B. For the record, you're loading material for 7B, am I correct?
7B, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Riviera Beach, Palm Beach County, Florida, approving a site plan amendment application SP 24-007, a special exception application SE 24002 from 2655 Next Generation LLC to operate a restaurant consisting of plus minus 3-999 S.F on A plus minus 1.69 acres plus minus 73-616.4 SF parcel. The subject property control number is 56 43 42 27 04 00 4940 and 56 43 42 27 02 003 0030 is located at 2655 North Ocean Drive in the city of Riviera Beach, providing for conditions of approval and providing for an effective date.
Mr. Thompson, before we start, prior to this meeting, I asked you to please refresh the recollection of this board because we have addressed this topic previously before the Planning and Zoning Board, so you can refresh our recollection.
Yeah, yes, sir. As the board may recall, back in the latter part of last year, 2023, I presented an amendment to the text of the code for the office professional zoning district. And at that time, we did not have a category for restaurants in that zoning district. And so in presenting to the board, it was my humble pleasure to present a text amendment to allow restaurants in the OP zoning district, office professional zoning district, as a special exception. The board approved it unanimously. It then went to city council, of which Mr. McCoy and his colleagues on the council approved it. And so now here we are and the unique thing here is that Ms. Sarah Thompson is here on behalf of the applicant, is that amendment was done with the thinking of this possible restaurant coming before the board, which is now, here we are on May 9th, is here before the Planning and Zoning Board for an application for a restaurant at 2655 North Ocean Drive. Okay, everybody remember that? I'm sure you do. So, be that as it may, I think it's been read into the record already. So let me continue forward. What you have here, ladies and gentlemen, is the picture of the subject property. At the top is the location of the office building where the restaurant is going to be, and at the bottom is the location in red of the parking lot, of the parking structure, or parking garage, I'm sorry, of which is going to serve this particular use. Now, the applicant is requesting approval to operate a restaurant consisting of roughly 3,399 square feet or 4,000 plus or minus within the existing building located on a 1.69 acre parcel of property. The existing conditions is an office building. The zoning is a professional office, and the land use is also office. To the north of the subject property, the zoning is multifamily dwelling. To the south is North Ocean Drive. To the east is North Ocean Drive. And then to the west is office, professional district, retail stores, and residential apartments. Most of you, I'm sure, recognize the location on the east of the shopping plaza where there's additional parking, a big plaza. Okay, the staff's analysis in reviewing this site plan special exception request indicates that according to section 3157, which is the site plan regulations, and I'm sorry, 3157 is the site plan regulations, and 3161 is the special exception regulations. What you're doing is reviewing these both simultaneously because a special exception is also requirement for a site plan review. The ingress and egress is intended to be within the office building and to North Ocean Drive to the east of the subject property. There's also an entrance and exit along East Avenue there, which is to the west. The off-street parking, there is approximately 155 parking spaces and the garage just to the north of this site, which is going to be, we believe, more than enough. The subject use, the restaurant requires a maximum of 27 parking spaces. What you have passed out to you is that on the page of on page 5 of the staff report that was passed out to everybody, number 4, there is a miswriting of that. The only portion that is applicable to this application is that the proposed use is not expected to generate any potential hazards, problems, or public nuisances to this property. The rest of that you can delete and ignore, okay? In addition, so on number 6, where it talks about demonstrate how the impact of traffic generation will be handled, you will see the third line where it starts at thus, there will be there's an A in 128. That A should be removed and there should be 128 spaces, not A28, but 128 spaces. And I'm sure you got that now in your revised staff report, correct?
Yes.
Good. So I wanted to make sure that the board had those changes. In addition, well, I'll get to the conditions of approval in just a moment. I want to continue on with this because you basically heard the key point here. In terms of site plan, the use is appropriate for the site. Essentially, if I may just go ahead and summarize for everybody. This is a first floor restaurant proposal going into an existing building. There will be no other impact to the rest of the site. There will be no changes to the parking, no changes to the landscaping, no changes to the building on the exterior, no changes to the site at all. All of the changes and improvements will be inside the building on the first floor, converting that first floor for a restaurant use. If you didn't go inside, you wouldn't know there would be anything happening other than the workers you would see going inside the building. But there will be no other impact to this site. Again, utilities and other services. Again, the building already serves with the available utilities, and this proposal would take advantage of that. Potential hazards. There is none to be expected to be generated by this restaurant. In fact, the hope is that this restaurant will provide an additional place for the citizens of this great city to go to and attend and, sit down and have a nice meal. Staff recommends approval of the proposed special exception and site plan request to establish this restaurant at plus or minus 399 square feet. It is proposed to be 2 full access driveways on North Ocean Drive and East Way. And the approval shall be subject to the conditions listed in the staff report that you have. Now, there's an 11 condition that talks about prior to the city council meeting, applicant shall submit a traffic performance letter. I just recently saw an email, Mr. Sermons, don't know if I got it, you and I both received from the city manager indicating that that instead of
I can speak on that.
You see it?
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Go ahead, Mr. Sherman.
Yes, so staff has included an additional condition in the staff report on this just to allow for flexibility for this application to move forward with the pending receipt of the Palm Beach County Traffic Performance Letter. As has been communicated by Staff Member Thompson, there are no external changes proposed to this. There is significantly more parking on site than what is required by this use. So we don't anticipate any traffic issues beyond what's already in the area. But to allow the applicant to proceed, we have requested this condition be attached to it.
So for the record, we have 11 conditions total, which I'm looking at right now, because number 11 is the approval from the Palm Beach County Traffic Division.
That is correct.
Correct.
And the applicant is aware of all the conditions prior to approval and accepted?
Yes, the applicant is aware that we are still requesting the letter. Yes, and they are
aware of that.
Yes, they are aware and working with the county to get the letter as soon as possible. This condition would just allow us to put a timestamp to it.
And if I may say a little something from a people standpoint, has, in terms of traffic flow, usually for most restaurants in general, because I did a little more research, the less crowded days or the less busy days are usually on a Monday, Tuesday, and some Wednesdays. It's depending on the location of the restaurant and the type of restaurant. Being where it is located, there is a need for additional, well, what staff believes could be an addition to the restaurant community in this city. Typically, and this restaurant will serve lunch and dinner. The busiest part of a restaurant is usually from 6 to 9 p.m., the dinner crowd. And so you'll have much more traffic from the 69 hour versus the noontime hour, which usually runs about 11:30 to 2 o'clock. And in between 2 and 5 o'clock, it's usually a low impact time. I say all that to tell you that from a traffic standpoint, the traffic level of traffic would be fairly low during the time of between 2 and 5 and not as intense during the lunch hour. The most intense time that this restaurant will be using the parking area would be from 6 to 9 p.m. And at that time, as you know, most office businesses close at 5 p.m. So in effect, what happens is that you'll have access to 155 spaces for the restaurant during that time period. And as you also know, across the street, using the crosswalk and traffic lights, there's additional parking over there across the street in that area. That's not really something tied to this application, but it's a good piece of information I thought you would like to know. That concludes staff's presentation. The applicant, a representative, Ms. Sarah Thompson, is available, and she will make the presentation.
Mr. Wiley has a question,
So,
real quick.
just ask a question, just to be sure. To the east of, I think it's North Ocean Boulevard, is there a, and I'm just can't remember, is there a light that'll be facing to the west for that traffic to come out, or will the traffic be coming out on, what is that, Westway onto East Blue Heron, or will the traffic be able to come out to the east and then be able to go back and forth?
Yes, Mr. Wiley, the traffic will be able to come in and out on North Ocean Drive there.
Right.
And then on the west side, you got East Way, I think it is.
Right, exactly.
And traffic can also go in and out there.
Right.
I don't think they'll use that as much because the dumpster area for this building is right in that vicinity. But East Way is available as well as for ingress and egress.
Well, just for clarification, just to make sure that if this has been approved through the traffic division, I'm pretty sure if traffic is going to come out to North Ocean Boulevard,
yes,
that it would be a light on that east side to be able to, I guess, maneuver traffic back and forth. Is this one, I just can't remember, is it one already there and it just need to be adjusted, or will one have to be placed there?
There's one already there.
Got it. Just want to make sure, because I
Yes,
just
sir.
didn't remember because we never used it.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah, Shepherd.
are you through, Mr. White?
Yes, ma'am.
Before you leave,
Yes,
now
ma'am.
you keep talking about these 155 spaces or the garage. Tell me, where is it at? Where's the garage?
Yes, ma'am. Be glad to tell you.
Is it a closed-in garage or?
Yes, ma'am. As you can see, the bottom photo, Ms. Shepherd,
Okay.
that's where the garage is. When you're coming across from west to east, and you know that how North Ocean Drive makes that curve heading north,
Okay.
there is that garage there. Just, you can't miss it as you
It's
go.
already built or they're
It's
building?
already there. Yes,
Oh,
ma'am.
okay, well, maybe I missed it.
It's there.
It's right on the property,
Yes, sir. It's right on the property.
and there's a light there.
Yes, and there are traffic lights there.
Two lights. if I recall.
Yes,
Yes, sir.
yes, Mr. Fernandez, there are traffic lights there.
There's two
for the
existing traffic lights.
Right, and there's 2 crosswalks there in the vicinity.
The only issue I see is, Mrs. Thompson and Ms. Thomas, is when you're coming from Blue Heron, from the city itself, city proper, that traffic light there, it's a royal pain hanging that left. So that would be something that would need to be addressed. Otherwise, you'd have to go to the next block, make a left, make a U-turn.
Well, the hope is, Mr. Fernandez, is that during the busiest time, which is, I said, from 6 to 9 p.m., the garage will open up 155 spaces, and hopefully the need for customers or residents to go across and come across that crosswalk will be minimized. At least that's the hope anyway. But I'm just saying it's available and those light system is there. But yes, it can be an interesting cross. But
Mr. Chair, before the applicant comes up,
Yes, sure.
because Mr. Guyton kind of cleaned it up where I had no idea where I was at over there looking for it. Is it offices still in that building or?
yes, ma'am.
So you're gonna have a restaurant up
on
there?
the second, third, and fourth floors, there is office space there.
Oh,
Yes, ma'am.
okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Ms. Burgess, now that we've opened it up to the questions, do you have any questions for Ms. Thompson?
I don't. I'm familiar with the area because it was in February, there was a walk held by Take Stock in Children. And I was actually, that was my, I volunteered. So my detail was right there in front of that parking garage. And I can tell you when the people came to participate in the walk, getting across that street right there in that crosswalk was very difficult. Now, there was a city police officer out there that day on detail, but just the amount of traffic coming through there was kind of difficult. But
Right. Yes, ma'am. Yes, Ms. Burst. It can be difficult, and that's my hope is that generally the parking garage there'll be enough with 155 spaces. The code requires only 27 for that type of use, given the square footage. That there is ample space there. I only mentioned the across the street because it's there, but hopefully folks will be able to use that parking garage.
is there
But your
any,
point is well taken.
yeah, because I did notice that there was no, you know, how like at some crossings you can push the button, you know, so there's nothing there like that.
Okay.
So do they have any plans to put something there for a crosswalk or, you know, like a flashing sign to let residents know when they can walk across? I mean, that would be very helpful.
That's good to know. I'll talk with Ms. Sermons and we'll see what's possible, ma'am. That's a reasonable request.
Okay, thank you.
Just for the record, I walk that area almost every day. There are two crosswalks. The problem you have is when you're coming in from Blue Heron, the Palm Beach County traffic will probably have to do the left turn arrow into the parking, give it like a couple of seconds to have that traffic turn into the parking spaces. And then with the pedestrians, there is, but as everybody knows, when you walk the city, vehicular traffic don't often abide by pedestrians on the crosswalk, to put it lightly. But there are crosswalks there. There are buttons to push to walk both locations there.
Okay, well, I stand corrected. I don't remember any buttons because, you know, because we were doing the parking detail right there, we had to kind of,
You can miss it if you don't see it, but
okay.
Mr. Gallen, you have any questions for Mr. Thompson?
No question.
Mr. Brown for Mr. Thompson?
Just a couple
I've
questions.
got one quick question. Oh,
The signage, what kind of signage are you gonna have for the restaurants? And what are the hours of operation gonna be?
The hours of operation, I think I'll let Ms. Thompson, no relation, but I'll let Ms. Thompson answer that question. She has the hours of operation. Generally, they're, you know, from like, since this is a noon and dinner, it can be anywhere from 10 to 11 or 10 to 10, and then maybe 10, 11, or 12 on the weekends. But I'll let Ms. Thompson can answer that. Okay.
Mr. Thompson, before we proceed to Ms. Thompson, Mr. Guyton has a question for Mr. Thompson.
I think it was similar to, I'm sorry.
Mr. Brown.
Mr. Brown's question. But if it's not addressed, then I ask.
Yeah, Ms. Thompson will give her presentation and we can address it with her.
Right, you can. Thank you,
Chair.
Mr. Guyton, board members.
Chair.
Yes, Ms.
Because his
Church.
other question was about the signage.
The signage, the applicant will be able to address signage, hours of operation, and anything related to the restaurant, seating occupancy, et cetera.
Hello, everyone. My name is Sarah Thompson. I am with Miskell Backman, located at 14 Southeast 4th Street in Boca Raton. I'm here on behalf of the applicant to 2655 Next Generation LLC. As Mr. Thompson so eloquently explained, we are here for a site plan amendment and special exception recommendation of approval to the City Council. Just to give another brief overview, again, I know Mr. Thompson pretty much laid out the history of the property and us coming in front of you several months prior. The address is 2655 North Ocean Drive. It is 1.69 acres. It is located in the Office and Professional Zoning District, which, as Mr. Thompson had mentioned, we were in front of you several months ago. Asking for a text amendment within that zoning district to allow for restaurant use as well as actual gym and fitness uses. Again, our request is straightforward. We are asking for a site plan amendment and special exception approval for a 3,999 square foot restaurant located within an existing structure. Now, I just want to make this clear that the first floor, yes, it is on the first floor, but it is not encompassing the entire first floor of the building. As you can see here, we have the floor plan. The southern two tenant bays, you could say, are still going to be occupied as office space, but the restaurant use will be occupying the entire north side of the first floor. As you can see here, and I can give you a little bit more of an accurate number of seating, we anticipate, based on the floor plan, plus or minus 90 seats. That includes chairs, tables, and bar seating as well. Again, that is an estimate. Do not hold me to that number, please. And I know that parking is an important part of this. So just to reiterate, this is an existing building with an existing parking structure located directly north adjacent to this building. There are currently and will continue to be 155 spaces. Based on the square footage of the building and the restaurant use, there are required for the office use 112 spaces, and we will be providing 128. The restaurant, based on the square footage of only 3,999 square feet, we are only required to provide 27, and we will be providing 27. That said, Mr. Thompson made a great point, given the fact that this is a restaurant and restaurants hopefully operate post work hours. I'm hoping no one's in their offices later than 5 p.m. Those 112 required office parking spaces hopefully and should be freed up for any restaurant patrons to use. And I just wanted to give a little overview of what the actual building looked like in case if it's been a while since anyone's driven by. This is the existing building for the office uses. And as I mentioned previously, I believe the southern portion will continue to be office space. And then the northern, it's a kind of a funky building. The northern portion will occupy the restaurant. And then as you can see here, here is one of the stoplights that was mentioned. And this is the parking garage that's directly north of the existing office building. It's 10 feet away and easily accessible. And here's another view of both the parking garage and the existing building. You can see the two street lights there as well as, and I don't want, and then you can see, and I don't want to call this out, well I do, but you can see the button for the crosswalk right there on the lower right-hand corner, and there is a button there as any pedestrian would want to cross to and from the space. And I do want to make one thing clear before we proceed to questions regarding the new condition that was presented to us by Mr. Sermons and Mr. Thompson. Based on conversations with your city manager, Mr. Evans, earlier this morning, he did request from the city to allow that the TPS letter that we are requested to provide to the city be a condition of approval prior to permitting rather than city commission. He feels that it is the benefit of the city based on how difficult, well, I won't say difficult, but how prolonged this process has been to get this in front of you today, the site plan amendment, and for the benefit of the city, and to allow a use that will benefit all visitors, residents, and everyone in between, that the TPS letter be allowed to be presented to the city prior to permitting rather than city commission. And now after that long-winded sentence, any questions?
Mr. Brown had a question on signage. Can you-
Signage. Yes, so again, I don't have the specifics for signage, unfortunately. We do have a tenant, but nothing has been solidified as he is waiting on the approval for this to continue forward. So he is fully ready to begin operating this restaurant. I believe it will be an Italian-American restaurant, but other than that, nothing specific has been decided upon as far as I am aware.
Any signage will have to meet the sign
Yes.
regulations for the city. So when they submit, we'll make sure that it's compliant with the city regulations.
Ms. Shepherd?
Yes, I've been to that building many, many times, and I thank Mr. Guyton for pointing it out, because I was lost over there today looking for it. But I like the concept. I think it'd be very cozy over there. I like the setup in there. It's very warm. I just have to see the restaurant. I can't hardly imagine it being there because I've been over there so many times. But it would be, I think it would be a great opportunity for us to go and experience other things rather than go over to the other side where they constantly have the same thing. So to me, it would be very nice. And I just would like to see, I like to see the signage, so people can understand where they're at, or what their preference in eating or socializing. Will you be sitting outside? I think that's the.
I do not believe that there's any intention to have outdoor seating. No.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Guyton?
Yes, one quick comment and one question. The TPS traffic performance report that you referenced is, I don't want to say customary, but it's not uncommon to do it the way that it's been suggested before you get your CO and permits. So just want to put that out there that oftentimes that is the condition stipulation that before you issued your permits to do business, you need to have this XYZ. And so whatever the city manager decided, I think that was pretty much customary. The other thing is, and this has nothing to do with my support for the project, but what type of food? What is there? Are there specialties? Is it steak, Italian? What's
Yes, so it's going to be American Italian. You take your best bet at what that exactly means. I'm sure it means. I'm sure it means pizzas, pastas. I'm sure there will be a children's menu with something more amenable, maybe a mac and cheese. But I have not seen a menu myself.
It has nothing to do with my support for the project, and I do support the project.
That's great, thank you. And I do know that the tenant in question he's actually French. And so maybe he'll incorporate some French food into his Italian-American cuisine. But as for now, I apologize, I've been saying this quite a few times, but it's American-Italian, and I'm sure it'll be delicious.
I just have a couple of questions.
That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Guyton. On the contractors that are going to be hired for the project, I'm always, as well as this board, we're amenable to ensuring that local contractors and local hires for the actual working staff are Riviera Beach residents. What steps are you taking or the ownership are taking to address those?
I have not actually discussed this with our client, but I don't see any reason that they wouldn't be amenable, and I can reach out to them and see what steps can be taken, and then I can get back with you and let you know what's been decided.
And just to be clear for the record, you are aware of the 12 conditions that have been set?
Yes.
Okay. And you're amenable to that along with the ownership?
Yes, and again, what I had said about the condition regarding the TPS letter, that the city manager is requesting that the TPS letter be provided at permitting rather than prior to city commission.
Mr. Welly?
Yes, I just want to go back to I think one of the most important parts, the people in our city and their safety. I just want to make sure again that the city, as far as what we're providing, given that usually when I'm doing my business around that area, I know it is busy with the people coming across and coming over to the Ocean Mall and visiting and eating and everything. 'Cause I know it's pretty crowded sometimes during certain times, but now with the restaurant coming in, which is a great idea with parking there, you're gonna have a lot more people coming across. Is there anything else that we can do for any kind of calming or any kind of making sure that the citizens are more safe going across there? Because like you said, a lot of times people come around that corner and they're not really looking. I know a lot of pedestrians are just walking back and forth. They're having a good time. Is there anything else that we can put there to basically slow traffic down just to make sure that no one gets hurt coming around that corner?
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Sermon?
From what we've reviewed to this point, it appears that may be a roadway issue more so than the use here.
Right.
So if there are concerns on safety of pedestrians in that area, and I actually believe, now that you mentioned, I believe Public Works is already doing some work or a study in that area for additional pedestrian crosswalks. But what I can do is get with the Public Works Department to see what options the city has to increase pedestrian safety in that corridor, if that is satisfactory to the board.
I think so. I think that'd be very important because, like I said, I see a lot of people walking back and forth there all the time, and this is hopefully the restaurant is very successful. And if that's the case, probably so they will leave and walk across the walk, over to the beach or whatever, and just walk across, and that was going to bring a lot more traffic, especially during the hours of 6 to 9 where it may be dark. So therefore, we need to make sure that we kind of put everything in place to make sure that the citizens are safe. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, just for the record, I've spoken to Mr. Travieso, Director of Public Works, and Mr. Evans on what is called traffic calming devices. 2 were approved by the AMRIT in that area there, but it would be beneficial to see if FDOT will approve anyone anywhere near these locations. They're the ones that when you press the button, it lights up so that the traffic can see that they've got pedestrians on the crosswalk. So they are aware of it, but if you could just stress it, I would appreciate it, as well as our residents that are coming to enjoy a nice meal and the beach. Ms. Burgess? Gal?
I have one. Is there what's the lighting like from the garage to the entrance of that building at night?
At night, I believe there are street lights lining the street, and I do believe that it is adequately lit within the parking garage itself. But other than that, I can't really exactly speak to, if it's warm light, harsh lighting, but I do know that it's adequate and should be safe enough for people to be going back and forth.
And what are they going to do about security? Will they have security, and do they have any cameras or anything there now?
I do not know exactly what their plan is for security, but I'm sure that they're going to make the adequate measures. Again, this is a restaurant with money involved and passing of more people than what would typically be in an office building. So I'm sure that they're going to take adequate measures. And again, I can run this by the client when I discuss it after the fact, and I can get that answer to you.
Sure, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
No real questions, but I think this kind of restaurant would be a great addition to the neighborhood.
Mr. Guyton?
Yes, I forgot one question. You made a statement that you would be providing the required parking to your new restaurant. Are you providing additional parking, or are you using the existing parking?
We're using the existing parking. We
Okay.
we have overflow, so it still works out that we're providing actually more than what's needed.
The chair.
Sure.
And I think we have to understand one thing, like downtown West Palm Beach, they do a lot of walking back across those streets, and it's not very well lit. It's very dark with whatever's going on. And I think it's going to be very nice because it's going to be different, I think. And people like to try different things. And I think it's being in that building as I have, it's warm and cozy, and just to sit there and have I think an evening meal will really put a spotlight here in the city of Riviera Beach. And so I think we're concentrating on too much, because when you go on West Palm Beach, it's like a zoo. They're walking all on top of each other. They're not even watching the lights. They just
Right.
walk right out in the street. They don't look for buttons. They just, they go, it's boom. So I think it will work itself out, but it is cautionary, I think, to make sure that the buttons work. Because I've been over to the island many times and those guys just walk right out in the street. If you're not paying attention, you'll run over to someone. But I think you should put, what is the strips, there where you can kind of see the walkways. I think that would help because a lot of people, even in my age group, I mean, I'm just walking. I'm not really paying attention. But if I look down and see the walkway, then I will stop and look. And I'm not thinking about the buttons. I'm thinking about getting across that street and eat. I'm ready to go and have dinner. So those are some of the things I think we have to think about because the city, we do need restaurants. We do. We need something different. And so I think this is a great idea. I'm not Italian, but I do eat pizza. My kids love pizza, so I have to go with them. But I think it's a great idea.
Thank you.
We thank you for bringing business into our community. And once one pops up, hopefully it'll be a trend for others to come into Riviera Beach as well. Ms. Weather, do we have public comment cards?
Yes, sir. We have one public comment card, Mr. Tadrick McCoy.
He's on his cell phone in the back. Mr. McCoy.
Good evening again, Tadrick McCoy. Couple things. I had no intention on speaking on this, but I want to bring a couple things to your attention, members. You guys have a huge responsibility. As you guys know, you're the local planning agency for the city of Riviera Beach, and the planning agency is called out as a requirement for municipalities. And just taking a look, particularly at the agenda staff report in the backup, I do got a couple concerns, nothing to be alarmed about. But number one is, members, and I certainly am not here to tell you how to do your job, but one of the things that I noticed that brought some concerns to me, and I looked further in the backup and I seem to be lost, and I even went through the code. What's before you, it says a resolution of the City Council of the City of Riviera Beach, Palm Beach County, Florida, approving a site plan amendment, application SP 24-0007. So members, the first question that should be asked, if you're being asked to amend the site plan, you should want to see what that site plan is. There's not one here in the backup. Secondly, in special exception application from 2655 Next Generation LLC. So the very first thing is, what are we actually amending? And there's not one here. And I'm not sure why, but apparently what seems to be considered a site plan is the floor plans, the interior floor plans. By all planning definitions, a floor plan is not a site plan. So certainly there's nothing here that you guys should be voting on to amend a site plan, because there's nothing that's included in your backup that's an actual original site plan, nor is there anything that's actually being proposed to be amended. What I do see is a floor plan. So there's a huge distinction between the two, because we have this building here, but if you put up this wall right here, guess what? You just changed the floor plan. So that's the difference between the site plan. The site is still the same outside, but the floor plan can change at any point. So there shouldn't be, if I'm reading this correctly, it shouldn't be a referral or reference to site plan, because this isn't a site. This is more or less what we see in the backup as a floor plan. Secondly, these are mutually exclusive. And what I mean by that is, you have two separate applications, and seemingly you could have an application that will approve a site plan, but you could possibly, in a situation, and I'm not saying that you should do this, deny a special exception. And if you look through your code, members, there are two different standards when reviewing a site plan application. compared to a special exception application. And to my last point, these items should be separated. There's no reason why a site plan and a special exception should be on the same resolution. So these should be separated. It's your job to ask staff these questions. That's all I have. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. McCoy.
Mr. Thompson, I believe you explained it earlier that we're going from an office
Right.
to a restaurant. Can you please
Yeah.
elaborate?
Yes, sir. I'd be glad to. I believe on page 9 in your back and on the staff report, it's labeled site plan, and on that you will see the building and where the restaurant is going to be going in on the first floor, and you will also see the parking garage at the top. You do have that,
Yes, we have page 9. I'm looking at it
page
now.
9, and it says site plan, and it's titled site plan.
That is correct.
Okay, next, if you decide in your deliberations to approve this, you will take 2 votes. The first vote will be for the approval of the site plan, of which I said earlier, there is no impact to the site plan at all. There is to the outside of the site plan. There's no changes to the landscape, no changes to the exterior of the building, no changes to the parking. Everything is existing. The only change conceivably that is going to take, materially that will take place, is on the inside of the building on the first floor with the installation of the restaurant. Okay. The second part of this process will be the special exception or the use itself. The use, being a restaurant, is subject to review and approval, has amended in the zoning code, as I said earlier. As you all remember, a few months back, I took this application to you all to amend the zoning code to allow restaurants as a special exception in the office professional zoning district. You all approved that. It went to the council, and the council approved it. So in this case, now you have a 2-step process, a resolution. The first part is the site plan approval. And then the second part is for the use, which is for the restaurant, which is special exception.
Mr. Chair,
Ms. Shepherd.
I do think that if Mr. McCoy wants to come in here, it's okay. But if I had any questions or stipulations, whatever, I think that Mr. Sherman should have been addressed privately before this goes before us. I think this is the second time I heard this presentation. And if it was any problems before it got to us, let's say to us first, and then to council, it should have been addressed with staff. To come in here while we're trying to dissect it with their opinion, and our attorney is sitting here, and I like for her to go over and try to explain it, rather than a council person come here trying to explain it to us. That's why we have legal, and I like to hear what legal has to say of whatever he's talking about. I have no idea what he's talking about, but maybe you can kind of shed some light into whatever he's talking about, which is obsolete to me.
So, Mr. Chair, if I may,
Yes.
you have before you 2 requests. One is for a special exception to operate as a restaurant, and the other one is for site plan approval. Is my understanding that typically staff brings those both together because the one is dependent upon the other in this particular instance. And I would make a variation a little bit on what Mr. Thompson said. I think if it were the pleasure of the board to do 2 separate votes, I would recommend that you switch the order and vote first on the special exception approval, because that would then give the applicant the authority or a recommendation anyway, that they be able to operate as a restaurant. And thereafter, you consider the site plan, because the site plan is dependent on that special exception use that they are requesting. So, and I will follow that up with saying that you're not actually approving the resolution that was read into the agenda. That a resolution is something that would be approved at the city council level. Right now, you're making a recommendation on these 2 land use requests. So to the extent that there's any any issue with the way that the resolution is drafted, that's something that can be taken up at a later date before council.
Mr. Chair.
Ms. Shepherd.
And that's why I say this council person, which I've been here quite a while, and I've never heard of a council person coming here before it gets to council, dissect in front of all of us that has given our time and attention to, I think, detail. I think they do very well. If staff is there giving their rendition of how this should be looked upon by the public, because the public is looking. And if they're not clear, they'll take his word over our word, 7 of us sitting here, I think, and they become confused. And I think if there's anything I have to say, I would call Mr. Sherman's office, and the attorney, I assume, is there that can answer any questions, but it becomes confusing to the public. If we have a council person coming in, this is going to council. So I would have waited till I got to council to make this, and I don't even know what he's talking about, so I can't really attack whatever he's saying, because I don't understand that you come in here while we're discussing it when this is going to go to council. And I want to make the public aware, this is why we have our attorney, this is why we have our director who give us the paperwork, and we look over the paperwork. Any questions that we have, we call them. But for a council person to come in here and dictate, it's just unprecedented. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Guyton?
Yes, thank you.
Also have a comment, Chair.
Mr. Guyton?
Oh, okay. And as most know, I just happen to be a planner by trade. And what we're doing tonight is consistent with the planning industry. When you have a site plan, you have uses designated to that site. Sometimes it's a single use, it may be mixed use. You may have a restaurant, you may have office, you may even have recreation. I'm just throwing out theories now. So if a site plan is approved with certain uses on it, and then you have an applicant come in and say that, you know what, I want to do something that requires a use that wasn't approved on that original site plan, as in this case. So they come back before us. We do what or staff do what they need to do, as they did, to make sure that either that use is permissible or it's approved through a special exception. So that's what we're doing. We have a site plan. This use on the original site plan was not on it. So we have to go back to the original site plan and say, okay, we have a request now. You go through the staff processes to ensure that what we're doing is consistent with our codes and also the planning industry standards. This is consistent. All we're doing is saying that on that original site plan that didn't have this use, we want to put that use there now, but it has to be done through a special exception. That is the only thing we're doing. That's it. As a planner, this is not unusual. The original site plan did not have this use. So yes, we have to go back to the original site plan and add this use now. And we're going through the special exception to do that. So as a planner, this is not uncommon. This is customary. And we're doing it the right way. You have to go back to the original site plan and then allow this use and then approve it through a special exception if that's the process. So those are my comments.
And as being a board member of the Planning and Zoning Board as well as all, we've heard it before with the same explanation. So I'll leave that at that. Mr. Wiley, and then we'll get to Ms. Burgess.
Ms. Burgess?
Ms. Burgess?
So two things, actually. So the first is, just so we're clear, can staff just clarify what part of the site plan is being amended tonight?
There's really, Ms. Burgess, no change to the outer part of the site plan. The work involved will involve the interior of the building on the first floor.
So
Okay,
it's basically the use.
yes, the use, yes, ma'am.
Okay, second thing, and this is probably going to be directed at the attorney. I know that Mr. McCoy is a council person. We all know that. I don't remember when he was called up on his card if he stated that, because to me, I've been on this board a long time as well, and I've seen other council people come and speak because they're also residents. So did he state in his, is that not allowed, that he can't come and speak as a resident because he is a council person?
Mr. Chair, I don't think that there was any issue with the council person speaking in terms of your normal analysis of like sunshine and things like that. To the extent there are any internal controls or internal policies that would apply, I'm not aware of those, but I'm limited in my legal counsel to the city. So I will leave it at that.
Okay, I just wanted to state that because other things were stated, and I just want to have that, clarification on record that he's not the only one that has ever come before this board to speak as a resident. I feel even as a P&Z board member, I've gone to many council meetings and spoke. I still feel like I have that privilege, even though I sit on the board, because at the end of the day, I still pay my taxes here as well. So I just wanted to ask that and get it on the record if there was something not correct about that. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, may I clear something up really quick?
Go ahead, Ms. Shepherd.
I said, and I'll repeat, I have sat here, and I know she said 16 years. I said, I've never seen it happen. Now, whatever happened, that happened. I said, and let me say it quickly, I never seen anybody come in here and dictate what we're supposed to be talking about. That's what staff is for. That's what our attorney is for. If you have any problem, and I go to council meetings. I think I'm well spoken in council meetings. That is my privilege as a resident. But I'm sitting here reading and I'm listening to the directors explain it. And as Mr. Guyton say, he's a planner. I remember he was a planner. And in fact, he put me on the board when I first came. No, it was Miss Wade. I'm sorry. Then him. So I'm well aware of how it's supposed to be ran. I'm very clear on it, but I want the public to understand that a council person coming here and override the directors is just unprecedented to me. And I'll make it clear, Margaret Shepherd. I didn't say nobody else on this board because I think the majority are new, so they don't know the procedures. But the procedure is that he came here, he spoke for one group, and now you come here and dictate that this other group is unworthy of the praise of the city of Riviera Beach. That is what I said.
Thank you, Ms.
Thank you,
Shepherd.
Mr. Chair.
Let's move on, please. Mr. Gallant, any questions?
No question.
Mr. Brown?
I'm not quite sure what's going on. I see you're requesting a site plan amendment, but traditionally or technically, there's no amendment to the site plan. So should we just ignore that part and just vote on the special exception application instead?
Right.
Only?
Yes, you.
Mr. Sermons, hold on. Ms. Early, our attorney, please.
Mr. Chair, I'll just point out that the code seems to tie site plans to special exceptions in the sense that it requires the submission of a site plan as one of the backup documents that have to be provided to the city for review. So they are connected in that sense, and that's probably why staff typically presents them together. So as far as the board's task today as an advisory board, I'm not as concerned about that, the interplay between those two items. I think it's perfectly acceptable for you to consider the site plan.
Is there a specific code you're referencing for the record, please?
Yes, I'm referencing section 31-61 sub C regarding submission of special exception applications. It says, a site plan shall be submitted concurrently with a special exception.
Thank you.
Can we call the question?
Mr. Sermons, do you have anything to add before we move on with the vote?
No, Mr. Chair, I'll only say that as far as the two items, the site plan and the special exception, staff has historically done a combined resolution and header for both of them. If it is the pleasure of the board to separate them, we are happy to split it and do a separate vote, but that is how they've been presented to the board in all of the records that we have for recent history.
Well, Ms. Early, our attorney recommended, and we've done it before, to split the vote, do the special exception first, and then the site plan. Am I correct, Ms. Early?
What I said was, if it is the pleasure of the board to split them, I would do it in that order, but I'm not saying that is required.
So, Mr. Sermons, what is your recommendation? Can we just read them both into the record? We have already read them into the record. Vote on both at the same time, or would you prefer splitting them to avoid any issues down the line?
Again, I think based on the attorney's recommendation, there's no issue with voting on it as presented on the agenda as one item.
Perfect.
And one last comment.
Go ahead, Mr. Guy.
And we got caught up in the minutia about the site plan and special exception. Again, we are adding a use that was not approved on the original site plan. That makes a difference. We're adding a use, so we have to deal with that site plan because it wasn't approved in the original site plan. I'm ready to move for approval.
I agree. Let's move forward, please. Do we have a motion to accept site plan amendment application SP 240007 and special exception SE 240002?
So, second.
Mr. Chair, can you clarify what the conditions of approval? There are 11 in the staff report.
There are a total of 12 conditions for approval. So
Okay.
our vote would be contingent, which the applicant already accepted the 12 conditions. So our vote will include the 12 conditions set forth.
Okay,
We can
so-
put it in
so-
the motion if you
Yes.
like.
Thank you. Just to clarify, condition 11 as currently drafted in the staff report references the submission of the Palm Beach County Traffic Division's report prior to city council. So that is, I'm assuming that's going to be amended based on your discussion, or is it?
Just to reiterate what was mentioned earlier, is that based on conversations with the city manager, Mr. Evans, he recommended that that condition be revised to say the TPS letter be provided prior to permitting rather than prior to city commission.
So our vote here will include the conditions set forth and accepted by the applicant. Am I correct, Mr. Sermon? Yeah, we'll do the motion over, but am I correct before we move?
Well, I think we need to clarify whether that's the pleasure of the board.
The pleasure is the conditions that set forth by staff are agreed to by the applicant.
The staff is not opposed to amending what's on number 11 to say prior to permit as opposed to prior to city council. And the applicant doesn't have a problem with it. Staff does not object to it either.
So we're just rephrasing the last condition, number 11, prior to permit. Are there any other language that has to be changed on the other 10 conditions?
No, but we do want to clarify, you mentioned 12 conditions a moment ago. I wanted to make sure that there was nothing we're missing. We have the 11th one that we just amended the language. Okay.
That is it. According
Okay,
to what
thank
you
you.
handed us, page 6 and page 9 has 11 conditions. So we're going to amend the motion to include number 11 prior to permit. Applicants should submit the appropriate DPS letter?
Staff is clear now. Yes, thank you.
So now let's amend the motion again, Mr. Guyton.
I move that we approve item, I'm sorry, I should have got this.
It's SP 24007 and SE 24002.
To include the 11 conditions, with the 11th conditions being modified to be required before the applicant receives their CO/permit, as opposed to what it says now before the next city council meeting.
Do I have a second?
Second.
We're ready for the vote. Mr. Guyton,
Yes.
Ms. Shepherd,
Yes.
Ms. Burgess,
No.
Mr. Wiley,
Yes.
Mr. Fernandez.
Yes.
The vote passed with Ms. Burgess dissenting.
Thank you. Let's move on to item number 8, workshop items. And thank you so much, Glenn Thomas. Appreciate it.
Yes, Mr. Chair, no workshops tonight. However, I did want to take this opportunity to remind the board of our proposed comp plan, the first workshop for our comp plan at the next meeting on May 23rd, where we will be taking up the topics of housing and transportation. We have the flyers for that here. We'll make sure every one of you has one before you leave. We are proposing to have a light treat for the discussion to encourage as many members of the public as possible to come out to engage on these first two elements of the comp plan that we will be reviewing the draft language for. So just a point of information there. Thank you,
Okay,
Mr. Chair.
for our residents viewing from home, I see here is the Housing and Transportation, May 23rd at 6:30 p.m. Where? Clean and Safe Resource Center, 1229 Blue Heron Boulevard.
That is correct.
Public comments, Ms. Weather?
Have none.
Any other staff updates besides Mr. Sermons?
Mr. Chair.
Correspondence?
None.
The other thing we have here on the Planning and Zoning Board, the next meeting is May 23rd, 2024. Am I correct?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
If there's nothing else, it is,
Mr. Chair,
oh,
Mr. Chair, one thing. Ms. Weatherby, when you bring my package, you all don't have to do another package for me. I guarded my life. Thank you. Thank
No
you very
problem.
much. I don't want you to overwork your paper.
No problem.
Thank you, dear. I appreciate you, Miss Simone. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
thank you, Mr. Shepherd. Mr. Wiley, you have one more comment?
I want to bring up one thing. Again, I know I talked to a few people this week about as I see we have the golf center going up. If everyone see the golf center going up in front of the Girls and Boys Club right here on 13th Street, the little golf center that's going up.
Malachi.
And, yeah, right. And one thing they're doing there also is that I know I spoke to Mr. Knowles twice this week about it, and just one thing I want the city to at least know about, or at least the city council to be able to at least try to understand the process of what's going on there. He's building a golf center there, which is something that I think is very, very important to our city for our kids to be able to come, especially if they're across the street at the Girls and Boys Club, to be able to come over and learn a sport that's going to teach them discipline and teach them accountability and like at least give them some kind of culture, right? And that's one thing I think we need in our city. One thing that Mr. Knowles is asking for is that on the corner part there, the corner of 13th Street, where that cul-de-sac is that he wanted to have that property to be able to put down the golf grass to where the kids can come over and learn how to putt, at least learn how to swing a club. And there's nothing like having a golf center without having something there where the kids can actually be able to swing golf clubs, at least be able to putt and be able to learn the sport at some level. But from what I'm hearing, that there's an issue with that because they want specific purchase for that piece of land that's on the corner that pretty much has no use to it at all. And it'll be something I think that'd be beneficial to our kids, especially the Boys and Girls Club, if that could be possibly donated to that area to where the kids can now come over and be able to learn a sport. At least people in the community be able to come over and at least be able to practice the golf stroke at that at that facility. And like I said, it's a very small area. If you get a chance, please drive by and see that one area I'm talking about at the corner there. And he's willing to fence that part in and kind of make it safe for everyone or whatever. It's something that the kids can come over and learn. That's how we got our Tiger Woods, right? His dad took him somewhere, taught him a sport at a very young age. Serena Williams, same thing, took his girls out at a very young age and taught them the sport. And we have kids right here at the Boys and Girls Club that can be able to come over and learn the sport at a young age. And maybe we can get the next Tiger Woods, the next Serena Williams, or our next sports star in this area. So please, that's something I want everyone to be able to take a look at and see that's a good idea. And even if it's something that the city can raise money to be able to, at least, if that's the case, purchase it from the city to where Mr. Malachi knows can actually put that to good use. Thank you.
Any other comments?
The chair.
Ms. Shepherd?
Okay, so you're gonna hit the balls over there?
No, ma'am. No, ma'am. It's just going to be a putting range, like a putting.
Oh, okay,
But
okay.
but at the same time, I have a lot of golf buddies who can donate a lot of golf clubs, bags, or whatever like that to that area to where the kids can at least take something home to be able to look at it. But it'll be like a little putting range where they can just sit there and just hit the ball into the hole and just learn the basic strokes of how to hold a golf club and how to swing a golf club and how to hit the ball inside the hole. It's basic techniques, teaches discipline.
Okay, because I was thinking you're talking about hitting
No,
those
no.
balls. Now you
No,
you-
not
you
like
have
Top
some
Golf.
Strong kids now.
Not like Top
they
Golf.
would tear up those windows over there. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wiley.
Yes.
If there's nothing else, 8:04 PM, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Second.